what we thought was a thing where we were already kind of telling a few people, like we were taking them there, like, look at this neighborhood, look at how great this is. Became a thing of like, oh, we're not doing that.
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting, comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
I don't want this to be hyperbole.
Okay.
Oh man, I wonder if the echo is gonna...
It's going to be weird, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
And while we were talking about how to broach this subject, I had thought, like, this is maybe the biggest announcement we could possibly have. But then I realized it's not.
No.
I think the biggest announcement that we could possibly have would be, hey, we're closing. Which we're not doing.
No. That would be a big announcement. Probably would be on the podcast.
I think the biggest announcement would have been, hey, we're opening. But obviously we already opened. We couldn't have a podcast first. That'd be weird.
Plus, who would even want to listen to a podcast about a store that hasn't even opened yet?
Yeah,
that
right?
seems weird.
So I think that by transitive property, that's not right at all. That's not the right thing. By default or whatever, I don't know.
Okay.
This is the second biggest announcement we could ever possibly have.
Probably.
Does that sound right? Yeah.
I mean, I think it's not too hyperbolic. I think it seems reasonable to say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the honors?
No, I'll let you go.
All right. Well, it may sound different because we are not in the recording studio.
No. Nor are we in Challengers Comics on 1845 Northwestern Avenue.
No, we are definitely not there. We are, however, at a Challengers Comics.
We are at Challengers Comics at 750 North Franklin Street, number 103.
In River North.
River North. You can hear the brown line or purple line train rumbling by.
As
we can hear it anyway. I don't know if you can.
Yeah, that's it. We're not even going to bury the lead. We're opening a second store.
Yeah, to be right up front about this, because we've told a few people and they have immediately misconstrued what we're saying. Challengers isn't moving. This is a second store.
This is another Challengers.
Correct.
And it's different how?
It's going to be blue.
Yeah, it's not red. It's blue.
No. Yeah, this is not going to be in any particular order, this podcast. We'll probably just be saying things and then going into what we're saying.
Right. Also, we're at the start of what is going to be a long month of backbreaking labor getting the store running.
We literally got the keys to the spot this morning.
Yes, we've been working on this for over a year now.
Yeah.
But not quite this one spot.
Correct. Yeah, this one spot has been a much shorter timeline. We had talked about, Patrick and I, a second store a while ago. And Patrick, what was your longtime expression on when we should have a second store?
I always said that the exact moment we can afford a second store is the moment we don't need a second store.
Yeah. Patrick and I, Challengers was an interesting experiment and something that we were excited about and something that we thought we could do something special with comics retail in a new environment. But the idea of like a chain of stores, of multiple stores, was kind of never really something we discussed, because a lot of what Challengers is to us is Patrick and I working together on a project. And multiple stores means you start diffusing some of that energy. And a lot of that approach starts to become, someone is running one store, someone is running another store, or two people are overseeing a bunch of people run a bunch of stores. And there's, honest to God, nothing wrong with either one of those approaches. We've worked under people like that, and that can be very successful. That's not what we were looking to do with Challengers, though. The hard truth, though, is that Challengers, which is a store that a lot of people have enjoyed and that we enjoy working on, is not what you would call financially successful. Not to the extent that it can, and this is key, afford to pay two people a full-time salary, and also potentially provide for their impending retirements, because both of the people who own the store and need a full-time salary are getting older.
Yes.
And a lot of the things that we could have done in our 20s or 30s, where it's like, well, renting or not saving or not having a retirement strategy, are things that when you start to get into your 40s and 50s, you think, oh, I really do need those.
Yep.
They become things where you're looking around and you're going, oh, what is the landing strip for this? Like, what is How are we transitioning out of what we can do in our 30s and 40s and 50s into what we'll need to do in our 60s and 70s?
Challengers Red could continue to let us exist,
Subsist.
so long as nothing bad happens.
Yeah.
There's no emergencies.
Yeah.
There's no, but we're not saving any money.
No, Challengers Red, which is what we'll refer to the original Challengers
Yes,
in Bucktown
from now
as.
on, we're going to call them Red and Blue.
Yes.
Not on the phone or anything, but when we're shorthand when we
Yeah.
talk about them.
And we'll go into a little bit more detail why we're not calling them Bucktown or River North. That'll be a later part of this podcast. So don't let me forget about that.
Okay.
Challengers Red is essentially the comics retail equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
You can do that, but there's a point where it's like, don't you want more than that? Or don't you want to not stress about as much of the things that you stress about living paycheck to paycheck? So we began discussing the idea of a second store, and I think it was something that I discussed more than you did, Patrick. I think you were the one who were like, A, that's a ton of work. B, we can't really afford it. And my kind of retort to that was, yeah, it's a ton of work, but if it ends up working out,
We can't not afford it.
it becomes a thing that allows us to keep doing what we're doing in a way that after 6 or 7 years of Red, we started to realize, oh, this is the top of it. Like we hit the ceiling of what Bucktown can really do for a comic shop.
Yeah, technically we hit that in 2016.
Right. That's what I said, after 6 or 7 years.
Right.
So it's you're in 2017 and 2018, you're starting to realize, oh, this is the limit, and the limit is not enough for two people to live on. So we start discussing the idea of a second store and kind of what that would be and how that would work. And we were looking on and off at different places. We had an idea of kind of how we could divide the labor. And as a quick segue, that was a thing that we were very clear early on that it was not going to be a thing where, like, Patrick runs Red and Dow runs Blue, or Dow runs Red and Patrick runs Blue. Like, it was important that both of us be hands-on with both stores in equal amount.
Because that's how Challengers Red became what it was. It's equal amounts of both of us.
Yeah, we didn't want it to be a thing where, like, oh, I would only go to Blue once a week, and so I'd get to see it, but I couldn't really impact it, and I couldn't really feel like it was a part of what I was doing. And that's kind of a reason why this is Challengers. Maybe in 8 years, maybe we'll be doing a podcast and I'll be going, I can't believe I said that. Challengers isn't really something we think of as a chain where it's going to grow exponentially, where it's going to be 4 stores in 10 years and then 8 stores after that. Like, it's a thing where anything more than 2 stores, we couldn't really do it the way that we like running a comic shop. Like, that would start to be a thing where, well, if you got 3 stores, then, I mean, are you doing two days in each store? And then what does that even look like? And who's running the store along with you? And you start needing extra people. And again, it starts kind of diluting what we wanted to do. So the second store wasn't, again, so much we have grand designs on a comic book empire, so much as like a second store allows both of us to not die in the gutter, is the short version of kind of what we're going for here.
Contest of Challengers, always telling it straight.
I don't want this, like, there's a way we could have done this podcast where it's very like, oh my God, you guys were so excited and this is going to be so great and all these great things, but like...
I think we're too tired right now to be excited.
Some of it, I mean, we've done a lot of work today and over the last few weeks, and we've got more work to come, but I like the idea of this being a thing where, maybe to a fault, but we're being honest about why we're doing this. It's, so many people will do a thing where it's just like, I want to spread the joy of comics, and like, sure, that's part of it. But there was a very financial dollars and cents reason why we're doing a second store.
Yeah.
Because up front, it is a ton of extra work. Not just the last few weeks as we've been stressing out over finalizing deals and getting things lined up, and not only over the next month as we are working literally every day this month somewhere in Challengers, but in the next, 6 months or more where we're each working 6 days a week when we used to be working 4 days a week, and we're commuting more than we used to, and we're working longer hours certain days. Like, that's all not because of the love of comics. It's because this is our plan to hopefully provide better for ourselves financially, because this is a business, and this, we opened it because we like selling comics, and I like the idea of working comics retail, and I don't look at the extra days I'm working in December and January as some sort of like penalty where I'm going to hate it. Like, I like working in a comic shop. I'll work 2 more days a week on that. Sure. But yeah, I mean, let's be honest. Like, this was a financial thing. So we were talking about it, and you needed a little convincing. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a decade older than you are.
Since
and
when?
That
can't be true.
I have built so many stores
It's true.
from the ground up, and I do mean built. I mean,
But only one in Chicago, the Challengers in Bucktown. Am I right? I don't remember ever seeing
Incorrect.
your name on another store.
That's true.
At least one that had an
there were
anniversary
two
recently.
people that had a vision down.
Sure.
And they were you and I, and here it is.
They pulled it right out of Michigan, out of Lake Michigan.
So this store doesn't require as much hands-on construction. There's a lot of things we have to do to set up, and there'll be 4 solid days probably of.
Yeah.
By the way, when I said we can do it in 2 days, we can't.
No.
I don't think we can do the grid in 2 days. But I was talking to my brother this morning, who's going to be down here tomorrow helping out. We've got a bunch of friends lined up who want to help
Thanks,
out,
George.
which is great.
Thanks, friends.
And George is like, hey, what tools should I bring? And I'm like, oh, bring this. He's like, do you need a saw? I'm like, no saw. We're not cutting anything? No.
Not unless we really screwed up.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't have to cut anything.
Yeah.
That's the plan for
Yeah.
this. And it's so weird because it's almost 12 years since we started
Yeah.
Red. And when we came in, the things we were doing were fairly, and this is going to sound so egotistical, but fairly revolutionary in the industry.
It was a type of comic shop that had not really hit a lot of critical mass yet. There were stores that had started up alongside us, or maybe a couple years before it, and there were a lot of stores that don't exist anymore that were trying to do like a certain something special with
Right.
comics, where it was less of a back issue collectibles focus and more of a readers and graphic novel focused store.
And Blue is going to be Red, but less.
Yeah, so to delve into kind of a little bit about the color scheme thing, when we had talked about a second store, I can't remember exactly how it came up, but I had said to you that I thought one of the ways we could go with it was, and this is the stupidest comic book joke thing, Challengers Red and Challengers Blue.
Yeah.
Because
Superman Red, Superman Blue.
For those who are far too young to remember either the Dan Jurgens iteration or the original Silver Age iteration, Superman got split into two, a red Superman and a blue Superman, and that was kind of a shorthand thing for a long time, Superman Red and Superman Blue. So the idea was, well, we have Challengers, and that's a red store, so what if we did Challengers but in blue? And it was like, as with anything for Challengers, half a joke idea, and then half like, no, what's really there? And the idea behind what's really there was, we don't want it to be a thing where like the exact same store just gets plopped into a new neighborhood like a franchise, like,
Right.
Oh, every McDonald's is pretty much the same or whatever.
Because Red became what it was because Bucktown told us
Yeah.
what to make it.
It evolved. It was allowed to evolve based on what we were hearing from people and what we were seeing on the sales data.
So we're not just duplicating Red.
Right.
We're leaving Blue kind of not a blank slate, but giving it room to develop its own personality without forcing it.
Some flexibility, but we are going in with certain ideas. Like, while we'll learn things from River North about what Challengers Blue is, we learned a lot of things just in general about comics retail and about how we want to run a business at Challengers Red, and we're applying a lot of those, nearly 12 years of lessons right from the start with Blue, as far as kind of how we're doing fixtures, how we're doing categorization, what we're stocking, how we're merchandising things. So a lot of those elements will be coming over to Blue in the way that, there's a New This Week section. There are comic shelves, and they are alphabetical. There are graphic novels on bookshelves in the center of the store, and they will be alphabetical, separated by genre. There will be a kids section. It will not be a kids room, unfortunately. We don't have room for that.
We're not that size.
But there will be a large kids section, or all ages section, I should say. There will be spotlight tables. There will be a place to sit. There will be, decent lighting and all those sorts
Hopefully.
of things. Yeah, we're working on it.
Right now, it is around 10 o'clock on a Friday night, and all the lights are on, and it's fairly dark in here.
We're used to Challengers Red, which has a ton of fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
This is going to be a lot more spotlight oriented. But anyway, getting back to Challengers Blue, like the idea is to take all of those fixtures and design elements and just kind of do them in blue, basically. Like the counters will be blue instead of red, but we are getting the exact same counters because we like those counters and we've learned how to use those counters well in store design. So eventually, the stores will start to separate more as we find out, again, kind of what each store needs and what it can absorb. But in general, like, the template for blue is red, but blue.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. We're not going to have a signing wall.
Yeah, I don't
Because there's
think
really
so.
nowhere for it. Like, the wall came about because we thought that every store looked the exact same with the wall behind the counter.
Right.
We don't really have a wall behind the counter now.
No, I'm not saying no to that, but it's definitely a thing where once we get everything in here, we'll kind of take a look and go, what can we do with this?
Yeah.
But yeah, much like not having space for sidekicks in blue, we kind of don't have a big blank wall. The store's not laid out that way.
Yeah.
Similarly, we don't have, a giant bank of windows. We have a smaller front window section, so we're going to have to do different things with the window art and how we display things.
It's interesting because this store is the same square footage as Red, not counting sidekicks, but it's a little bit more narrow.
A little bit, yeah.
And instead of having the long bank of windows, we have the short one, like Dal said. So you come in at a different point, and the counters are going to be, instead of when you come in, the counter is going to be all the way at the end.
Yeah, it's a weird layout in that it basically, if you go into Challenger's Red, and you walk in the front door and you turn right and you look to the back and you see the comic supplies, that is basically Blue's front window area.
Yes, behind the alley window.
Right. Is Blue's front window, and that's where the front door is, a little bit to the left of there. And so basically, when you're looking at Challenger's Red and there is this huge bank of windows to your right, that's all a wall. That's where like comics and stuff are going to be.
Yeah.
So it kind of takes the same layout of Challenger's Red, but rotates 90 degrees where the windows are. And so as a result, it reduces that window space and increases the wall space. I don't know what the natural segue is. I don't know what the next thing to talk about. Okay, so we're talking about years ago about doing a second store. And it's just the idea of, like, it's a proposal at that point. Like, this is something we should look into.
Right.
And it's a certain... Several times where, like, the circumstances kind of weren't right one way or the other, like personally or financially, kind of where we were at. It wasn't a thing that we were able to pursue. And sometimes when we were able to pursue it, we just couldn't find a spot. There were so many times, non-consecutive times.
This is the strangest thing.
That we were looking at different areas of the city and looking at different neighborhoods and looking at online realtors.
Listings and
and then driving around different areas to look for rent signs. And could not get anybody to call us back. So many places that had for rent signs in the window. We'd call them up, left messages, no one returned a call.
Either somebody answered and said, no, that's rented already, but it's a customary practice in real estate to leave the sign up. But you would think they're leaving the sign up so someone would call, and then they would say, oh, that's rented. How about this?
Right.
Nobody ever bait and switched us. Nobody
Yeah.
ever said, how about this?
Yeah, there were a couple times where we ended up working with a different broker, basically because of that, where they're like, well, what are you looking for? And we go, okay, well, we're looking for this much square footage and we're looking in these neighborhoods. And frequently they would send us back stuff where it's like, oh, that's completely the wrong neighborhood and that's way bigger than we were looking for. And oh my God, that needs too much work. And
Yep.
no.
It's like every house realtor or car agent, like,
Yeah.
hey, here's my budget, here's what I'm looking for. All right, this is way outside of your budget and way too big of a thing that you wanted.
Yeah. Like we'd go, okay, well, we need, we're looking for between like 700 and 1,500 square feet. And I'm like, okay, here's 2,500 square feet. And it's like, no, don't want that.
Yeah.
There's one where it's like, here's one that's in the basement. We said we wanted street access.
Yeah, like, this price is really good. Oh, wait, I think this is in the basement. Yeah, this
Yeah.
is in the basement.
Yeah. And there was one where it's like, this is a great new building that's going up. It's like, cool, that is 2 blocks from another comic shop. No, thank you.
Yeah.
We don't want to be those guys.
We had the neighborhoods where we weren't near people.
Yeah.
And where we could best serve. And honestly, last summer of 2018, we found a spot real close to where we are now.
Yeah.
In a rundown building.
Yeah.
And
it
I
was like formerly like a salon
A nail
or
salon.
something.
Yeah.
Nail salon, yeah.
And I was so set on it. We never even got to go in. We looked
No.
in from the outside. We saw blueprints online.
Yeah.
But it also had a full basement.
Yeah.
Not a finished basement, but a
No,
full
but you
basement.
could put stuff down.
And a parking space.
Yeah.
And I was sold on all of that.
Yeah.
All of that. And they never called us back, Then I called from a different phone number and left a different name. And then you got an email like, oh, we're out of town for the next week.
Right.
And they never called you back.
No.
And then, like a year later, we noticed it's still for rent, but from a different broker.
Yeah.
So we call again, And I get no, that's already rented. So why is your sign still up? Oh, I leave my sign up until they make me take it down. But again, they didn't offer any other place.
Right.
It's like, is it us?
Yeah.
Do people just not want to rent to us?
I sincerely thought for a while we were being blackballed. I'm like,
Right.
how is it possible that no one will even talk to us?
And we always present it as, hey, we Challengers Comics, we've been in business, X number of years, whatever it was at that point.
So we were talking and we were looking at different places, and it was really the last 5 months that we were getting real serious about it, where we started to think, okay, we're really going to do this. And we looked at a few different neighborhoods, some that we'd been looking in before, and some that were just like, we were in a different neighborhood for something, and we're like, what about a comic shop here? And then we'd investigate and go, oh, no, it's too close to other comic shops.
Yeah.
Or, oh...
Remember how excited we got for Pilsen?
We did. We were looking at Pilsen, and we're like, oh, it's way too close to First Aid. No, can't do Pilsen.
Yeah.
But that was like 3 days of like, look at all these great places in Pilsen, and then it's like,
look at these prices. Look at this. Look at the layout. Oh man, this one has a basement.
yeah, how would we get there, and all that sort of stuff. But then, how did we get in touch with Julie? How did Julie become a part of the equation?
I don't know, found her from looking at stuff.
I don't remember. Was it a Pilsen thing, and she was just like, what else are you looking for? Or whatever?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, there was a woman named Julie, and we'd gone over and said, like, here's what we're looking for. Here's the neighborhoods that we're looking for.
And she sent a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Most of it not even on the dartboard.
Yeah, places
I'm
where it's
making
just
wild
like,
hand gestures. You can't see.
they can hear the hand gestures.
Okay.
I always hear them when I listen to the podcast.
They just assume that it's the brown and or purple line.
Probably. But we'd sent over kind of what we're looking for, and like Patrick said, a lot of the things that we're getting back, we're like, that's not quite what we're looking for. But there was one we saw where we're like, oh, that's kind of interesting.
It was a bike shop.
It's a bike shop in Printers Row, like Polk and what was the cross street? Federal?
Yeah, Federal.
Federal
was the one behind it. Dearborn.
Polk and Dearborn. It was on Dearborn, right near the intersection of Polk. And we went out and looked at it.
Big store.
Yeah, much larger than we were looking for. Again, we were looking for, to be honest, like, and this is maybe a little segue. I was okay with us opening a second location that was more like a starter store that could grow.
Yeah.
Red, we're not really looking to move. That's a store that we're kind of happy where we are, and we're fine with it being there indefinitely. Blue was a store that we were looking to maybe do something where we get off the ground at a smaller store with a much cheaper rent than you can usually get in like the downtown area of Chicago. And then when the lease is up, then we move and we get a larger space because we've got roots in at that point to the neighborhood. We have a clientele. We have money to grow it with. But if we can save costs up front, great. So we were looking for, again, like low end, like 700 square feet. It's a small store. In a few years we move. 1,500 square feet. It's like, that's a little bit larger than Challengers Red is now, not counting Sidekicks.
Right.
But what was the square footage?
18 something?
18. It was pretty big.
Huge ceilings.
Yeah, big old vaulted ceilings. It was basically two storefronts that years back a restaurant had knocked down the wall and created one big space. And that restaurant went out of business like a lot of restaurants do. And then a bike shop was in there for the last like 10 years.
Yeah.
But the bike shop, something had happened with the business partners, and they basically needed to shut it down.
They were moving. Yeah.
Yeah. So the business was closing down, and so the spot was becoming available, but the bike shop was still in there when we were looking at it. And we looked at it, and
it was so cluttered.
It was very. I mean, it was a bike shop. It was just like they had bikes hanging from everywhere. You couldn't really get a sense of much of the space, but it seemed like it was something that would need a ton of work. But we looked at it and we thought, okay, like, this is something.
There's potential here.
There's potential here. And then we spent a little time in the neighborhood that afternoon. Like, we went over across the street to Hacks and to Gordo's, the ice cream place. And it was like a summer day. And it was so nice. Yeah. It was such a cool neighborhood vibe. That corner.
We were downtown. I felt like we were on small town Main Street, USA.
Yeah, it felt like a very affluent, bougie neighborhood. It was so great. And we're like, holy shit, we can see ourselves here. And there's like a cool bookstore up the street. And there's this great little park. and there's like a dedicated like parking lot across the street that you can park at all day for a decent cost. There's this cool little like deli on the corner. There's a taco place. There's a couple bars. There's a pizza place that's going into the corner. Oh my God, like we fell in love with the neighborhood. I didn't fall in love with the space. I fell in love with the neighborhood. Patrick fell in love with the space and the neighborhood. So we talked to our broker. We talked to Julie, and we're like, all right, we're interested. What's the next step? And she's like, well, I'll talk to them, and we'll negotiate, and we'll look at some stuff. And we'll go back and forth on kind of what we're looking for. And she got us an amazing deal.
Julie was an amazing negogator.
Yeah, she kicked so
many
much
great
ass.
things.
Like there were things that she got us where like we didn't know you could ask for that, and she's like, ask for everything. Like maybe they'll say no, maybe they'll negotiate. And so like the deal we got, as far as like a reduction in square footage and 3 months of rent and all this stuff was like, holy shit, so great. So we're like, all right, well, it was, I think it was Memorial Day, Labor Day. It was Labor Day. That I'm like, well, like, cause we had found out that, okay, well, the bike shop finally moved out. You can go in there and you can take a look at it. And we're like, that's great. Cause we want to see it empty to really see like what we're going to do with it, measure stuff out. So I went in there. I think we were both in there. We went out Labor Day morning.
We were told that the bike shop had left, but they left a bunch of crap behind, and we should wait before we come look at it. And then their broker spent like a week cleaning it, and we went out Labor Day.
Right, because we had time that morning.
To see it empty for the first time.
Yeah, and we wanted to see it. We wanted to do some we brought our measuring tape. Like we'll do some measurements. We'll figure out what kind of space we're dealing with, so we know what we can fit and where we can fit things. Because we had in our head kind of, we'd seen a floor plan, so we had an idea of kind of where things were. But they'd moved everything out except for like a couple, like there was a gigantic counter that we thought was something they were going to take out, but we found out, no, that is built in by the restaurant that was there 10 years ago. That is like where all the electrical is, where all of the phone lines are. It's in this gigantic diagonal counter that we're like, that has to get out of here. The place was a shithole. Once everything was gone, we were like, oh my God. Like they had 2 bathrooms, one of which was utterly destroyed, one of which was mostly something you wouldn't want to spend more than 5 seconds in.
Yeah.
All of the electrical for the entire store was in that diagonal counter that we needed to get rid of, and then the back left corner of the store because that's where the kitchen was originally. There was no electrical on the entire north wall.
Either wall running up, and in that store, our counter was going to be in the front.
Yeah. So there would be no electrical where that was. The walls were destroyed because there were bikes hanging from every wall, so everything needed to get repainted and patched. There were these like little, like indentions in the wall, like a pillar, like a half-inch pillar.
Yeah, cement pillars that would.
So we couldn't run anything across the walls because every like 9 feet it would be something else. So it's like, well, most of our stuff is in 2-foot sections, so that's not going to work. The lighting was terrible. We would have needed to put in tons of new lighting. So we're in there the Labor Day morning, and we're like, oh my God, this is substantially more work to get this thing usable than we're normally used to, than we were prepared to do. So we talked to our realtor, and we're like, look, we want to bring in a contractor. Like, before we sign any paperwork, before we make any offers, we want a contractor to tell us what it's going to cost to bring this thing up to the level that we would need it to be.
Which is just vanilla box.
Yeah,
right?
Vanilla box. We're not looking for anything special. We just need it to be blank enough to put things up, because it was nowhere near ready to go. And so, like that, I think Friday, we went in Thursday.
Had to be Thursday.
That Thursday, we basically, like that Tuesday, the day after Labor Day, we called a few different places that were recommended to us. 2 of them are like, we don't do commercial. One of them was like, what do you need? So I explained the situation. They're like, we can come out Thursday. Great. Thursday morning, it was you and I and the realtor and the landlord and the other realtor and 2 contractors that were coming in for us. And so we went through the entire space.
And we made a massive list.
We're like, we pointed at literally everything, because we're like, give us quotes on everything. I don't know if we'll do everything, but we need to know kind of what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
How much this is going to cost, how long it's going to take to do, because we have a budget and we have a timeline. And if the project exceeds either one of those, we have to go with a different space. We were ready to walk away at that point, but we're like, we want to see if we can make this work. So we spent Thursday doing that, and the contractors are like, it's going to take us like a week to put it together. The following Friday, so 8 days, we should have something for you. 8 days go by, we haven't heard anything. We don't hear anything that Friday that we're supposed to get stuff. That Saturday, I send an email that's like, hey, where are we at on this? We're waiting to hear back from you before we can make a move on this. Monday morning, they give us an email that says, hey, we're putting some final numbers together. It's going to take us another like 24 to 48 hours, and we should have something for you. Great. Later that Monday, we get an email from our broker, Julie, who tells us that she's never seen this happen before, and she can't believe it.
We had a lease in hand, but it wasn't signed.
Yeah, it was like a letter of intent. These are the agreed upon terms. Once we sign it and give the deposit, it is activated. Julie's never seen this before. She can't believe they're doing it. Somebody else has come in, a nationwide clothing store, is willing to take the store as is for a 10-year lease. And I think the other thing was like one of the other terms on the lease changed because they would not need it.
Yeah.
If we agreed to those terms today, we can still have the spot. If we don't, they're going to go with the other brand. And so we're like, we don't even know how much it's going to cost to rebuild this. It could be 10 grand. It could be 50 grand. We don't know. It could be way more. So we're like, no.
Forget it.
Yeah.
Let it go.
So what we thought was a thing where we were already kind of telling a few people, like we were taking them there, like, look at this neighborhood. Look at how great this is. Became a thing of like, oh, we're not doing that.
Yep.
That's not a spot we're going to get anymore. And so Julie's like, well, I'll keep looking. And she knew what we were looking for. And again, she would come back to us with a few things, and we're like, that one's in the basement. That one's too close to another store. Even recently, like a few weeks ago, she's like, I can't find anything for what you're looking for. Like, I keep checking, and I'm not seeing anything. And it's good that she didn't find anything because we had already found a space by that point.
Yeah, I think by like the next Tuesday, you had this space.
So
you found this space.
So while we were in kind of the final stages of the Printers Row space, I was not certain it was going to happen because of how much work that space needed. I was not convinced that our contractors could bring the project in for what we had to spend. I was convinced that they were going to come with a number that was multiples of what our budget was. So I was kind of already looking at spaces. I'd kind of plugged in like a few different neighborhoods, and I'd contacted a place called Tenant Base, and they had sent me back a few things. And so when this didn't happen, like that Monday, I was able to go, okay, how about these spaces? And we found like some of them, one of them was the spot over in Printers Row that we were already like, no, it's a nationwide clothing brand is getting it. And a few other ones where we're like, we don't like the space, we don't like the neighborhood, we don't like the cost. And then we saw this one in River North that we're like, that's real interesting. And it had pictures, and it's like, oh, that spot is ready to go.
And keep in mind, last summer, Dal and I walked around right where we are now, taking numbers down, taking addresses down, and calling around.
Yeah.
Like a block further east of where we are.
Yeah. We hadn't passed by this spot in particular, but we were looking around, and so we're like, oh, that's real interesting. And so I'd emailed the woman at Tenant Base who had contacted me, and I'm like, that one's interesting. When can we go see that? And she's like, you can see it this Thursday. And we're like, all right, well, we're kind of already in the mode of finding a spot. So let's do it. Let's see if we can move fast on this one and hit something close to our original timeline. So we went in and we looked at the spot and we're like, holy shit, it's ready to go. Like, there's a few things we would need to change. Like, this needs to be painted and that needs to be repainted and this wall needs to go, and carpeting and whatever.
All these cords had to go away.
Yeah, it was previously like it was a
realtor.
Like an apartment rent?
Yeah.
Like an apartment?
Apartment people or something like that.
So it had a bunch of like
cubicles,
Ethernet cabling for a lot of different cubicles or workspaces. And we're like, we don't need that here. But we had looked at it and we're like, okay, yeah. So we moved fast, and again, our realtor was good about getting us some of the things we needed. You know, a lot of the work that needed to be done was going to be covered by the landlord, and we're like, that's great. We had an aggressive timeline, and they're like, we can do that. And so like end of October, we were signing a lease, and we were like, this is going to happen end of October, and then the month of October, it's going to get built out.
End of September.
End of September, sorry. End of September. And so, the beginning of October, things are going to get built out through October. And then we're going to take position November 1st. And then we're going to open up November 29th. And it's, that's our goal and that's our plan. And then we had just an absolutely miserable October. Do you want to talk about this part?
I don't know that we need to get into it.
Okay.
But
the short version is one of the key ingredients to securing the space fell through in the most catastrophic way possible.
which also would have prevented us from doing.
Oh yeah. It was
The
not
Pender's Row space as
specifically
well.
for this space.
Yeah.
It was just a general like, do you want a second store? Well, this is what you need to do. And then, oh, did we say we were going to do that? Well, we're not.
Well, we're not.
And then having to find out why not, and then what does that mean in general, and then how do we kind of cover that part of getting a store? So it was.
We'll talk about this part. When we opened, when we first decided to do Challengers back in 2007, we knew we needed more money than we had.
Because we are two people who had basically no money.
Who worked at comic stores their whole lives.
Yes, and had not spent decades saving up for this.
And we, our credit was good back then, and we applied for a small business loan from Chase, and we got it. And it is all small business loans are backed by the U.S. Treasury. So in the early days, we got a little bit shaky with our payments, and eventually had to use the help of a service called Corporate Turnaround to pay it off.
Yeah.
And we did. We paid it off years ago.
Yeah.
Well, when you apparently when you take out a small business like that, they put a lien on the business, and apparently that lien had never gotten taken off, even though the loan had been repaid.
Yeah.
Which apparently is very, very common.
Yes. So
And-
many. If you look up like UCC lien, most of the stories are like, hey, you probably just found out you have a UCC lien because you don't normally check these things, and you went to get a loan, and they said, oh, there's a lien on your business, and now you don't know why it's there, and it could take a while to get off because no one's in any hurry to remove those when they put them
So
on.
the people that had offered us the loan to get the new store, which by the way, they came to us and said, hey,
Yes.
we can give you this much money, and we said, we can do a store.
Yeah, that was part of where the desire to do a store came from. Is like, oh, that's how we're going to fund it, because
Yeah.
this is a place that we had used for other loans before and paid them back in full.
Yeah.
Which is why they offered us more money.
So when it came down to it, they're like, yeah, you're not approved. We're like, what?
Why? Yeah, usually like
What happened?
when we've done loans with them in the past, it's, we'll let you know in 72 hours. Within 24 hours, it's like, you're approved, the money's in your account. This was like 3 days later. We're like, why haven't we heard anything yet? And then it was a Wednesday.
Around 6:30,
Yeah, that we're in the store.
we get an email. We need more information.
Yeah, and we're like, what? And they're asking for a thing of like, oh, there's a UCC loan. Just show us that you've gotten that removed or that you're making payments to get it removed. And it's like, I don't even know what that means. And then we sort of figured it out. We sent them what we thought was good. And then within 3 minutes, they were like, nope, denied. And then we spent a couple days like, what if it's less money? Because you've given us less money before. And they were like, no.
Nope, you have a lien.
Yeah.
Which we don't know why they didn't notice the other previous times, but
Because apparently it's been on there since 2008.
2007.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's when we signed up for the loan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're still working with that because you need attorneys for that.
Yes.
And attorneys are not inexpensive.
No.
And we were referred to a guy who is apparently good at this, and so much so that when we talked to a different lawyer for a different matter, and I dropped this guy's name, he's like, "Oh, you're using Sam? He's the best.
Yeah.
He'll take care of you."
The problem is Chase in particular is in zero hurry to get this
Yeah.
thing resolved. Like it's a weird thing of like, I think I've said to you, like it's like they're holding the business hostage, but they don't want to give a ransom note.
Yeah.
Like there's a lien, but when we go to them and say, why is there a lien? They're like, we don't know. Okay, what is it going to take to remove the lien? We don't know.
We don't even know you have a lien.
Yeah.
No, we can look it up ourselves and see that you have a lien in us.
So why don't you remove it? Well, it's probably there for a reason. Okay, well, what is that reason, and what do we do about it? So it's been basically a month of zero progress on that.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, it was all about like, okay, how do we fill that hole with different money? And we did eventually.
We thought we weren't going to be able to. We asked
Yeah.
the guy we thought we weren't going to be able to, and there were other aspects we're not going to get into that were
Yeah.
making this whole thing just the most miserable experience of my life.
Yeah, I told somebody, I think I told the landlord here that we've been in business for almost 12 years and we opened another store, and this is the most stressed I've ever been in my entire career as co-owner of Challengers.
Yeah.
This month was the worst month.
Uh-huh.
But it ended with us having a new store. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
So things are going to be real tight for us for the next year,
Uh-huh.
and things are going to be real tight for us personal-wise, time-wise,
Yeah.
but also financially.
Yeah.
However, if Blue starts strong and we wanted to open desperately before the holiday season,
Yeah.
A friend of mine who I was talking to had said, how great would it have been if you opened up when House of X came out? And I thought, that would have been the best ever.
It would have been pretty great.
But a
A lot of people looking for comic shops back then.
Yep. That's okay. We probably would have been open and not been able to get those books.
Yeah. Not in summation, but maybe to bring it back to the present. We're opening a new store. We're opening it in River North. We're opening it on November 29th. That is Black Friday. Here is what I would caution people against. Maybe if you show up in the first few days, grain of salt.
See,
Don't have
a
too
lot
critical
of
an
the
eye.
visual aesthetic that we want comes from the counters we have. And
The bookshelves.
We're happy with those counters. We've had them for almost 12 years, and they're still holding up great.
Yeah, which is why we wanted more of them.
So we contacted the same company, and they're like, we really don't do that so much anymore.
Yeah, so some of the major stresses that we're having now in November is basically our timeline was,
2 months, now it's 1.
well, yeah, basically October, the entire month of October was while the space is getting built out and before we can get in there, let's start getting things
Order the
done.
bookshelves, order the counters.
Yeah, let's get our Diamond account going. Let's start working on a reorder for that. Let's start doing that order pack so that things are ready to go and books are going to be showing up for people. Let's order the bookshelves and let's order the counters and let's do all these things because they're going to take time and we want them showing up, when the store is open, but in enough time to do stuff with them. Instead, we basically closed on this spot the previous Friday. That is October 25th.
Okay.
So basically that Monday, 28th, was when we were having to put in our first Diamond order. That's when we had to call.
Yeah, literally the day that the Diamond orders were due for December was the day that we found out we could get this. And then we tried, because we already had the new account started.
Right.
But then we're like, hold off on that.
Yes, we cannot give you any orders yet because we don't know if there's going to be a store for those orders to go.
And then it's like, hey, we need to reactivate this right now so we can do the order by, 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. when it's due?
Something.
And they didn't do it.
Yeah.
They did it the next day.
Yeah. So basically that Monday, the last Monday in October, was me calling all these different places to at the time find out, what's the lead time? When do we need to give you an order by? Because we wanted to get in here on November 1st and do measurements and be happy with our layout and all that stuff. Because I had done some measurements on the Friday that we gave the deposit, but it was a very rushed thing.
Yeah.
It was not, I could not spend hours here doing all this stuff. It was like me and the landlord holding different parts of the measuring tape to get it all done. And then finding out on Monday, basically when we needed to order the bookshelves and the counters was 2 weeks earlier.
Yep.
By that point, it was these aren't, the stuff that we get is always in such a weird color or in a style that isn't something that we just have 15 of those in the warehouse, we'll box them up and send them out tomorrow. These have to be manufactured and they take time. So the counters.
Curse our standards.
Pretty much. The counters are maybe they'll show up before the 29th. Maybe, but probably the following week. And the bookshelves are also probably the first week of December, the first week of December, but maybe. And it's all right. So basically, we are already having to figure out what is our plan B temporarily for the first week, if we have to have counters to have a register and things on, and if we have to have a place for the graphic novels to go, where are they going to go? So that first week, if you come in November 29th through December 10th, please don't judge us by that. Please don't. We'll have comics and we'll be able to sell them to you, but beyond that, I don't know what we're going to have.
We'll have graphic novels, we just don't know how they'll be displayed.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to be on. We have an idea of what they'll be on. They'll be on bookshelves, but they're not going to be on long-term
Yeah, but that's
bookshelves.
also a whole bunch of extra work to get that
It
done.
is,
But what
and
else
I'm
do
not
you
looking
do?
forward to it.
No,
But again,
no.
what are they going to do? Be in diamond boxes?
Yeah, right? Yeah, so, and then just the, you know how anti-slat wall we are,
Yes.
and we like grid.
Yeah, we do. We use grid and Challengers Red.
Yeah, so we went to order the more grid, and We got the grid panels in white, what we wanted,
Yep.
the right quantity. I went and picked them up myself.
Yep.
Filled up my entire car because they box each 2 foot by 5 foot panel in one box. And I'm so glad that I had said, should we get 6? You're like, no, let's just do 5 feet, not 6 feet. I couldn't have fit 6 feet in the car.
No,
5.
you would not have been able to
barely
drive.
fit. Or that we'd have to have the door open, they'd be sliding everywhere. So it turns out that the shelves that we want, they don't really do anymore.
Nope.
Most people are going away from grid. Grid is only used in trade shows. And they have them in black. They've got plenty of shelves in black. We don't want black.
I also don't think they have them in 4 foot. At least they don't on their website.
Yeah, they have them in
2 foot sections.
2 foot. Fine. So it's a matter of, the place we can go and pick them up and save all the shipping from, we can't use.
Right.
We have to find alternate ways of doing it.
So then it was, a bunch of time spent online, like, where can we get these? And the answer is, honestly, not a lot of places. Most places have stopped carrying them. And even the ones we found are a slightly different style than we're used to. So we'll see how those work out.
Yeah. And then it became a matter of, we did things differently in red. Shouldn't blue be different? But, no, this is how we know how to run a business.
Yeah.
We're going to stick with those things. There'll be things different about blue.
Yeah. Also, on the timeline that we have, to get it open in a month, we do not have the time or the money to try out stuff. What if we did this way? We're going to have to try it, and then we're going to have to undo it or do it a different way and experiment with it. And we're also, unlike when we opened Red, we are running a store while we're doing this.
Yeah, we had extra weeks off that we were able to do with Red.
Yeah, so we could spend whole days there getting orders and getting stuff in order.
We started building Red out in January and didn't open until the end of March.
Right. Well, this is, again, a lot more accelerated. I think we can do it. I'm not concerned that we're not going to be able to be open. The biggest stuff was the diamond order, and we know how long a diamond order takes to come in.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a problem. We have a plan B for the counters and the bookshelves. We have the grid wall. We just need to get the shelves, which we have shelves. We just need to get more shelves.
Yeah.
We can order more shelves.
I did a count today, by the way.
Yeah.
We have a lot of shelves.
Okay. Do you know how, we'll have to figure out how many we need, though.
Right. That's the problem.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm probably just going to take we'll look at what we have on the walls now at Red and just go that many.
But do we count Red and sidekicks?
No, but some are
Right.
sidekicks.
Yeah.
Red and then pad it
Yeah.
out some.
So
obviously.
we'll need a lot of dumps,
Yeah.
but Specialty Source Services has white dumps.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That's what they said, yeah.
Okay. Their website does not seem like they have any white.
Okay. It's a way to find out.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're in good shape. We're obviously not in the shape we want to be in, but with everything we've ever done for Challengers, there's always been an unexpected obstacle that we have to overcome.
Just today alone, getting the Wi-Fi hooked up here.
Yeah, boy, I got here at 11. I got here 10:30 because I needed to get the keys and talk to the landlord about a couple other things. And the appointment for AT&T to do our internet and our phone line was sometime between 11 and 1.
Yeah.
I'm at the Dunkin' Donuts around the corner at 10:50, and I get a phone call from the guy saying he'll be here in 5 minutes. I'm like, that's great. So sure enough, he's here at 11. We immediately find out that he can't find the phone line in here. What we thought was a phone line that was even in the wrong spot is a dummy spot. There's nothing there. There's no connection. So he has to go in outside from the line, run it to the building, and then run it from the junction box in the back hallway to inside the store through the ceiling tiles, run it through around the ceiling here, drop it in, put a new box in. Then when he does that, he has to there's a problem with the test he has to run where it's working, but the test doesn't say it's working. So he has to call into the office. Whole thing took 5 hours. It took 5 hours of me sitting here with nothing to do because all that was here was a bag of stuff that I'd bought at Walgreens 15 minutes before I got here. And so, yeah, it was 5 hours. And then when I was done, I got a late lunch over at Portillo's and went home for an hour. And then we came right over here to unload all of the grid wall panels and the other stuff that we'd saved
the new
up.
grid wall panels. We still have half to get later.
A carload of stuff that we had to unload. And then do this podcast. And then I get to go to Challengers Red tomorrow so Patrick can be in blue doing grid wall.
Yep.
Fun stuff.
So if you are a Challengers Red Club member and Challengers Blue is more convenient for you, it'll be easy to switch over.
Yeah.
Just let us know as it gets closer.
Blue is at Franklin and Chicago.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned the address before, but we didn't specifically say
750 North
CrossFit.
Franklin. We are in a building that has a Starbucks
Yeah.
and clothing stores and hot yoga and a foot clinic and
Yeah.
a salon.
Yeah.
We are right at the Brown Line, the Chicago Brown Line.
Mm-hmm.
If you are anywhere near the Brown Line, Chicago Brown Line, right here, perfect.
Brown
There's
and
a
purple line.
and yeah, brown and purple. Yep. And Chicago bus
Yeah.
right outside.
66 bus.
Okay. So yeah, if you want to transfer stuff over, of course, because things change all the time, whether you want them to or not. The program that we've been using since 2009 to sell comics to people, it's called Microsoft RMS. Microsoft abandoned it. Someone else bought it, and now it's called RMH. And we've never upgraded because we heard a lot of problems for RMH.
Plus, the few times that we tried, it seemed like it got lost in communication. So by the
Yeah.
time someone finally got back to us, they're like, "Oh, you needed to have done that when your
We
lease
licensed
ran
from
up."
you. Yeah. And everybody who works for us is well versed in RMS, but now we all have to learn RMH real quickly.
So I think some of the fear of that is overblown. I think the point of sale system might look a little different, but probably operate the same. I think Comic Suite is going to be identical
Okay.
because it's a separate program entirely. It's just RMH and kind of how it accesses the database is more of the problem. That will have to be a bit of a learning curve, but that's something that only you or I will ever really deal with.
Sure.
And we'll have time to figure it out. I'm not concerned about that on any level. And it's not going to affect customers, I don't think, at all. I
Okay.
hope. I mean,
Good.
I don't have a fear that the people's subscriptions are going to get screwed up in any way. And it shouldn't look any different from there. And like our website's going to look the same.
Yeah. Or will it?
No, I think it will.
It'll be different at the top.
Yeah, it'll say other things at the top, like 2 different stores instead of just one.
I've already changed my email signature line to have the 2 addresses.
Oh, neat. Yeah, I'll probably have to do that at some point. Anything else you want to talk about with Blue?
Yeah, just because so many things that we can't anticipate go wrong. We have 3 windows in the front, and we made a banner, a coming soon banner that had been 3 pieces
Yeah.
to be able to put in the front window.
A triptych.
And we just used a Chris Giarusso image from our other windows in black and white. And it's 3 separate panels, and we picked it up on the way here and get here and find out that instead of 3 separate panels, it's 2 of one and 1 of the other and no first panel.
Yeah.
So we have 2/3 of the banner up right now.
Yep. Coming soon.
Because we didn't unroll and check everything before we got it because we never have to.
Right, and additionally, it's very hard to unroll everything, check it, and re-roll it back up again. These
Yeah.
are 36 by 72 banners, and there's 3 of them stacked on top of each other. You can't really look at them all.
Yeah, so for the next 12 hours, it's going to look weird.
That's fine. I'm not worried about it at all.
So there you have it. That is the announcement we've been waiting to talk to people about for a very long time.
Yeah.
It is the end of an era. It does mean that Dal and I will not be working together in the same store at the same time again.
Yeah, short of a few special occasions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There's already one that we're talking about where it's like maybe that one.
And Marvel approved it.
Yeah, stupidly.
Each of us will be in blue 3 days a week and red 3 days a week.
Yeah, and then Kent will be in blue and red 1 day a week each.
Yep.
Although Kent's day in blue will probably rotate between a bunch of different challengers.
Yeah.
It won't just be him.
Until we find new ones around here.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely find some folks in the River North neighborhood that want to be part of the Challengers family, so to speak. Yeah, if you are a subscriber and you have an interest in having your subscription switch over to Challengers Blue starting in December, shoot us an email, give us a phone call, tell us in the store, and we will work that out. If you are somebody who does not shop at Challengers and is in River North and wants to have your subscriptions at Challengers Blue in River North starting in December, please let us know ASAP. Making sure that people's books are waiting for them that first week of December is going to take some coordination. We want to make sure that no one's missing out.
Yeah, there'll be a few week learning curve.
Yeah.
But we definitely want to be open for the holiday season.
Yeah, and again, we will be opening 11 a.m. Friday, November 29th. That is Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving.
For people in Bugtown, there'll be a Black Friday sale happening at Red,
Yes.
which we'll talk about next week.
Yeah, the Black Friday sale at Challengers Blue in River North is that there is now a store you can buy comics at.
Yay!
There you go. That's what we did for you.
Well, thank you.
Sure. I feel like there's other stuff that we probably should have talked about with this. I imagine we'll keep talking about.
Yeah, I mean, this will be an ongoing. Yeah, there'll be updates every single. And even then, it's going to be so weird. Like when we get together to do the podcast, it's going to be mainly stories that we haven't heard yet from the week or whatever.
Maybe. I don't think it'll be. I mean, it's not like we're not going to talk.
True.
You know?
Well, I'm sure it'll be messaging all day.
Yeah,
Like GChat.
Yeah, we'll be on GChat. I think eventually, when we eventually have a third person full time with us, I think Slack, if that's still a thing at that point.
Yeah,
That's what a lot of
that's what the kids do.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of like
Corporations.
creative stuff can be done over Slack. It's a good way for people to keep in contact and keep things coordinated and send memes.
Oh man, I forgot to mention this, but there was a child in the barbershop today in Black River next to us screaming bloody murder for a very long time.
Really?
Like, we thought it was somebody who was scared of getting a haircut. We found out later it was a whole different thing.
Oh, okay.
But I did, just standing outside of the back door of Red, I recorded some of it. So I'm going to drop it in right after we sign off.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Keep reading comics in 2 different places in Chicago.
What?
What?
Mind blown.
What? Special occasion.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155.
And in the River North neighborhood of Chicago at 750 North Franklin Street, number 103, 312-285-2252.
Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.